so much as there we go. Now I'm unmuted again. There we go. Let's try this again. What up? What up? What up? Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode number 8 of the Backwards K Baseball Podcast. I am Chris Asbrock, and again, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, main man, Scott Kaiser. Scott, how you doing, buddy?
What's going on, brother? It's been a long 2 weeks since we last had a show. It's good to be back.
I know, man. It was. I mean, we had to take last week off, and it was miserable. I just remember, texting you. I was like, man, I hate not talking baseball. Like, it sucks.
And then I looked at the schedule for the next 2 weeks, and you realize we might have to miss the next 2 Mondays too, right? Damn kids in their baseball.
Okay, you know what? We can, we're coaches. We don't have to be.
but also, hey guys, we're not going to come when the game may be over. We have a podcast. You guys got this, right?
Oh yeah, you know what we can do is we can just get ejected. That's what we'll do.
There you go. We can leave early. Have a reason.
Yeah, we're there. We just get we get run, and hey, I mean maybe the second, third inning, we're good.
Nothing like getting ejected from a little league game to get the juices flowing before the show.
Hey, that's how you get buzzing, man. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Well, on a side note, Scott, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary to you, man. 20 years ago today. Kerry Wood. Straight dealing.
Dude, unbelievable. 20 strikeouts. Gave up 1 hit against the Houston Astros on this day. That's insane. I mean, that literally. What's that?
I said it seems like an entire lifetime ago. I mean, I remember it vividly because I came home from school that afternoon and it was just about wrapping up. I think that game had started at like 2:00 or some of this mid-afternoon Cubs action, and so I caught the last 3 innings of it or whatever, and just was mesmerized because Kerry Wood had just kind of come on the scene. Everybody knew he was supposed to be that dude, and unfortunately his career didn't go the way as we all had hoped because of the arm troubles and his body failed him. But man, on that day, I'll never forget thinking, wow, this is the next Randy Johnson, like the next guy who's just going to be that dominant force in baseball for the next, 10, 15 years. Wasn't meant to be, but what an incredible afternoon of baseball it was for him.
Well, when we were saying that, like when that popped up on my Twitter feed, I just remember I sent it over to you and I was like, oh my God, and like you said, I mean, your text, response back to me was great. You were like, dude, that lineup was no slouch. No kidding. I mean, that was, Biggio. I mean, you had Derek Lee, Moises Alou, Jeff Bagwell. You
had two future Hall of Famers.
Yeah. And Bagwell, what did I just say? It was Bagwell. Bagwell, Bell,
Biggio, Moises Alou, Brad Ausmus.
What was I say? The 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Bagwell, Jack Howell, and Moises Alou were 0 for 9 with 9 strikeouts. That's absurd.
That's a rough day at the yard. But that was and this was a rookie. A rookie coming in and just mowing down a lineup that at the time, again, not only did they have 2 future Hall of Famers, they were perennial playoff contenders. The Astros. They not only were they no slouches, they were one of the better teams in the league at the time. So
1,000%, yeah. And like you said, that lineup's no slouch, and that was the best way to put it. And again, he mowed through those guys with no regard for human life on that. It was like there's nothing you can do about it. And when the pitcher's on, I mean, that's.
Ooh. Mike wants to know if we should blame Dusty for ruining Kerry.
Well, okay. In all seriousness, Dusty gets a bad rap for the way he handled pitchers. I mean, I'm not going to fully blame him for that, but
and Dusty was in charge of the Cubs then, or was that just before he got there?
Oh, I was
I can't remember. I can't remember if they hired Dusty shortly after that 20 strikeout game, and then it was Dusty who furthered along sped up the process of destroying his arm, or if he was managing that day, because I believe he wasn't there for that.
I don't see that's the thing. I know. I don't remember. I don't really feel like looking up right now.
I was just gonna say, I'm going to Google real quickly because I feel
Yeah,
like it
you
was
can look
either
it
like
up.
Rothschild was just before Baker though. So let's see.
I might have been Rothschild then. I don't, man, that's going to be crazy. Yeah, I don't remember that one. But I mean, he's to blame for Mark Pryor. We'll go with that.
Yeah, well, and again, if he wasn't the reason for, if he wasn't the one who was out there for that 20 strikeout day, soon thereafter he made sure to finish the job.
I'll show you guys. Yeah, that was.
Oh, Riggleman was the manager.
Oh shit, it was you, Riggleman. Okay, yeah. Now I think about it, you're right, man. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a blast from the past name.
I always liked Jim Riggleman. I really did.
He's a solid, if unspectacular manager. He had crappy teams there.
Oh God, yeah.
For the Cubs, so
wasn't real pretty. But he got the job done, with some teams there, but just never could get over the hump. Which
Matt also pointing out that Moises Alou probably needed more piss for his hands that day. Guess they weren't soft enough.
Yeah, they weren't soft enough. Yeah, exactly.
Could you imagine? Hydrated. Kerry Wood might have just played in the wrong era because Kerry Wood today, like the blueprint for that day was just, I remember those high up and in fastballs nonstop. He would have flourished in today's baseball because, he was really the only one who had that power fastball that threw like that at that time, with any type of consistency and, sitting there pumping 98, 99 for 8 innings.
See, weird. We talked about it. Was it a couple episodes ago about would you rather see an offensive game or a pitcher's duel? This I would freaking kill to see a game like that.
Well, yes, if it's coming up historic, especially, then you can give it to me either way, offense or defense. But yeah, to be in
a performance like that though, because when a pitcher's on, dude, there is nothing more amazing than when a pitcher is flat out dealing and there is nothing that a hitter can do about it. That's amazing to me.
And that day it was pretty cool there in Chicago too. Yeah. It was one of those cooler afternoons, so it's not like, it was a warm summer day. So the idea that those guys were sitting there flailing at the ball all afternoon, trying to keep warm on top of striking out. What an afternoon. I think imagine what it would be like to be a Cubs fan at the ballpark that day.
Hell, because you're a Cubs fan. Sorry.
Well, it was the only thing they had to root for that entire season. That was much before they actually got to where they, were at least competent on the field. Those are the bad news Cubs.
That's true. That's before things slightly got better.
Well, before we get too far, you want to run down what we're going to talk about tonight?
Yeah, we got some. There's some big news around Major League Baseball, including a huge trade that went down this past weekend. We have loads of injuries we're going to discuss. Some returns that on the mound we're going to get into. Obviously, some of the action around the league, and and looking ahead. So, without further ado, let's get into the big news over the weekend, where the San Diego Padres and general manager AJ Preller, who, obviously if you're a baseball fan, AJ Preller cannot simply sit still at any time. He is all about making deals, and that's what he did this past weekend, where he acquired Luis Arraez from the Miami Marlins for a package of prospects, Dylan Head, Jacob Marcy, Nathan Mortarella, and Woo-Suk Go. And those guys are all headed to Miami, while the two-time batting champ in both leagues, or batting champ in each, the American League and National League, is headed out west for San Diego, where he properly made his debut and did what he normally does, smoking the ball all over the ballpark and coming in with 4 hits in his debut. So that's Luis Arraez. But Scott, what are your thoughts when you because I remember I texted you when when I saw that, and I was like, holy cow, I think you were at the Reds game, weren't you, when that came down? I want to say it was Friday night. I remember. I want to see you at the Reds game when I sent that to you.
Yeah, I think that's where I was when I got there. I know I was busy when that news came out. I was doing something, and it took me a second to get my bearings because I was slightly confused. One, we usually don't have trades this early with names like a Luis Ariz. Now, he's not a household name. He's not by no means a superstar when you're talking about just the casual fan or whatever, but he's a name known around baseball. And again, as you mentioned, he's won the batting title in both the American and National League now. So he's no slouch, but not often that you see somebody get traded this early in the season from a team that made the playoffs just a few short months ago. The Marlins, having made the playoffs for the first time in a while, went through a drought. They got there barely, but they did get there, and it looked like they were going to build into the future with the building blocks that they had there. And instead, the offseason started with a dud. They fired the general manager. Well, they and the general manager parted ways, if you will. They retooled, and then they proceeded to sit on their hands, not making, I don't think, a single move or any transactions of note. No signings, nothing for at least the first, few months. If I remember correctly, the first signing that they had, or the first notable move that they made, was Tim Anderson signing to play shortstop with them.
Yep.
Up until that point, they didn't even have a shortstop, presumably, going into the season. Nobody on their regular roster nobody on their 40-man roster had played regular season baseball at shortstop regularly at the major league level for any given amount of time. So it looked like they wouldn't have anybody of note. They did end up signing Tim Anderson, who, there's a reason that the White Sox let him go or didn't re-sign him. And here we are, just 2 months into this, 2 months after the offseason has ended, and the Marlins have already mailed it in. Their GM announcing that it looked like after they made this trade, they weren't going to make the playoffs, which was an understatement, sitting at only 7 wins on the season. But just as confusing, as far as I'm concerned, is this trade for the Padres. The Padres traded Juan Soto in the offseason. Looked like they were shedding payroll, said they needed to cut some meat off the bone as far as money was concerned. Soto stand to gain is set to be a free agent at the end of the season. It was obvious they weren't going to be able to afford him to any type of contract extension, so they trade him away. Obviously, they still have Tatis Jr. there. They had signed inexplicably Xander Bogaerts last offseason to play shortstop, moved him around. They didn't have any outfielders in the offseason. Looked like they were going to start the offseason not having a full complement of outfielders. They ended up taking one of their prospects and who played shortstop and turning him into an outfielder, in Merrill Jackson, or Jackson Merrill rather. And I just don't understand what either team is really doing. Like there doesn't seem to be a direction for either. Like if you look at the Marlins, just 2 seasons after trading for Ariz, they ship him off. Looks like they're tearing it down and starting back over, which isn't unfamiliar to those in Miami or around baseball. But the Padres, when you ship out a Juan Soto and you signal everyone that you're heading in the rebuilding, I don't understand bringing in Ariz, who really doesn't have much of a position. They've got Xander Bogaerts, who they moved to second base in the offseason because it's clear that he no longer has the range to play shortstop. So there's no real defensive spot for Ariz. He moves into the DH role, but he doesn't have much power. So he's a hit first DH, more of a singles guy, not much power. I don't know, man. Can you help make sense of this trade for either side, really?
Well, the Padres, I get it. Just because they dealt Juan Soto doesn't mean much to me. I never thought it was going to be a rebuild because look at the guys that are still on that team. I mean, you still have Fernando Tatis. You still have Manny Machado. You have Xander Bogaerts, Jake Cronenworth. Again, you're bringing up Jackson Merrill. I mean, right now, Luis Ariz is up to bat right now. Oh, he's 0 for 1. That sucks. They lost that trade, but but bringing in a guy like that is, to me, it's just strengthening an already deep lineup. I mean, right now, the Dodgers are 5.5 games ahead of them. Okay, so let's be real. They weren't going to win the NL West. That was the Dodgers to lose right from Jump Street. So that's how that was going to go. You're going for a wild card. Can they do it? Oh, by God, yeah, they can easily do it. And that's what they need. They just get there and they're going to continuously play good baseball. With the talent they have on that team, this is just, to me, this is a reinforcement as well of, hey, we fully believe in you guys. Just because we dealt away a Juan Soto doesn't mean, we're punting on the season or anything like that. Which I'm not saying that's what you're thinking as well. I'm just, overall generality. But to me, that just signals, hey, we're going to do what we can, to win this thing. Yeah, they might not win the division, but it's still, you're still showing the clubhouse and that team that, hey, we're going to do what we can. We're going to go for it. That's what that signals to me. So I think at that point, it's a good move for San Diego. On the flip side, the Marlins, dude, what in the hell are they doing? Like, I mean, it's May 6th. Now it was May 3rd when that trade happened. But I mean, seriously, like that's already. I mean, you couldn't at least wait, a little later in the season where you get more players, better players. I mean, that's what I don't get. This to me reminds me of the Reds from a couple years ago, where the Reds make the playoffs the COVID year, and then they had the talent on that team. All you had to do was add a piece or two, and go for it. Then, what does ownership do? They sell everything. Now, granted, it's worked out because of what Nick Krall did, and the moves he made have certainly paid off for the Reds and the guys that they brought in, like completely, floored the rebuild, which, but that's not how the Marlins operate. That's what I don't get. And to me, you're trying to build a fan base down there. It's almost impossible, it seems like, because every time you get a player or two and you have some hope, you just get kicked in the teeth again. And that's what it's got to be super frustrating for Marlins fans overall, because they don't deserve this, because it's, right when you have a chance to do something, the rug gets pulled out right out from under you. And that's what it seems like every single freaking year. That's what happens to the Marlins, and what they do with their fans. And that's what ticks me off about this deal. I think, why now? To me, 7 wins on the year. You're not going anywhere. We know that. But at least hold on and get closer to the deadline and bring more guys in. And not, I mean, you're dealing with a team that has already dealt a bunch of prospects anyway, and their farm system isn't as loaded as some of the other ones. I mean, for God's sakes, earlier in the week, the Kansas City Royals had checked in on Luis Ariz, and, but apparently the Marlins liked the package that San Diego was willing to dish out. So they liked it. Who am I going to say, otherwise? I just would have held on a little longer. But I feel for Marlins fans, and it doesn't surprise me why they don't have, a real solid. Let's see. I was reading what Mike just posted. Yeah, it wasn't like the Padres had even to give up a ton to get him. Bolster the roster for some peanuts, not bad at all. No, I completely agree, Mike, and that's what I'm saying. Like for the Padres, it's a good deal. This is a win for them, but for the Marlins, to me, it's a total loss. And now you got to look at some of the guys that are left on there, and now what are you going to look at in terms of who's going to go next? So,
Mike also pointing out that the Marlins had gotten off to a better start than this trade never happens. I don't know. I was just going to say, I mean, I think that the trade eventually happens. It might have just gotten delayed. I think I actually like the trade for the Marlins better in the sense that I know it looks like from the outside they don't really have like a plan, but to me, it's clear they're signaling they're just going to tear it all down. They're going to start back over. And so, I mean,
Well, I get that, but
they've been hit with
that's
the
what I don't.
injuries. No, well, I mean, when it's like I'm going to take it one step further and say it's not that if they had gotten off to a better start, but I think it's when you add in the fact that you don't have a Sandy Alcantara, you don't have a Yuri Perez. Like they've been, Braxton Garrett is still on the injury list. He's on his way back, but they've lost, 4 pitchers that would be in a starting rotation for other teams, and then you add in the fact that they did get off to a slow start. Jake Berger's just now coming back from being out for 2 weeks. I mean, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And then, I mean, when you bring in a new GM and he comes from Tampa Bay, he's looking at this roster. And he probably figured, I mean, another move that we should have seen, this coming, or that this was more likely than not, is the fact that they went on ahead and declined the option on Skip Schumacher's contract, signaling that they didn't really intend on bringing him back next year, which means GM wants to bring in his own guys. Skip's going to be free to go off and get on the job. I mean, again, rather than half-ass the rebuild and be sitting there holding on to a rise, the earlier you get rid of these guys, the better, because you're generally getting a better return. Maybe they didn't like what they were offered from Kansas City. Maybe they didn't like what they were offered from their teams, and this is the best they could do.
Oh, see, but I disagree with that part, because I think the longer you wait for a deal with an all-star like Luis Ariz, the longer you closer you get to the deadline, you're getting a better haul anyway, as opposed to May 3rd.
Yeah, but I think like now San Diego is willing to give up a little bit more because they've got him for an extra 2 months practically. I mean, the deadline not being until the end of July, like I mean, it's a good move for San Diego if you're going to do it, because you get the most out of the player in Ariz. Like you get the most service time out of him. But again, I don't know that it just doesn't seem to. It just seems like an ill-fitting part in San Diego.
But then here's my thing: if they're looking at a rebuild, and they are, like you said, they tore it down already, or starting with the decision to not pick up the option on Skip Schumacher. Why didn't you do this deal in the off season over the winter when you had talked about it anyway? There was talks about Luis Ariz being down, and here's my thing. Since shit has already hit the fan and things have gone sideways for you, why go with the we know injuries have cost this team. So I look at it as, well, then sometimes it is what it is. Why not look at just saying, okay, let's just, let's ride this season out. Instead of rebuilding, we know we've got talent. Look at bringing in a couple pieces in the offseason. And go at it in 2025. That's how, I mean, that's where I don't get the Marlins and how they operate. I really don't, because it seems like every year it's just an absolute gong show every single year down there. And I don't get it. I think a lot of it's probably too coming from ownership. Like ownership is, I mean, it seems like each and every year it's interesting coming from them. How much of this do you think is ownership driven as opposed to just GM driven?
Well, once upon a time, I would say it was all ownership driven, because the Marlins had terrible ownership back-to-back times. Now, I don't know. It's been real quiet down there. We know they don't spend a whole lot of money. They don't make any, really high-profile moves. They operate on the margins and try to build, through the draft and whatnot. They've done it essentially the right way, but when it comes to something like this, I think like it has to be a big part of ownership, right? Or the newest GM is saying, look, this thing needs to be torn down. It's much easier to start from scratch than it is to just kind of patch the holes on this. Give me the time to build this thing up and we can get it right. And then maybe the GM has more to do with it in this instance than the ownership group does. But you have to have the ownership group sign off on something like this, right? Like if they believe in him and the job that he's going to be able to do, they've got to give him the runway. So I don't know. I want to say that maybe it's 60-40 GM to ownership on this one.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think ownership has a lot more to do with it than the 60-40. I I just think they're seeing right now of where they're at, and it's just like, all right, let's try this again and see what you can do. I mean, I'm thinking 80-20, 70-30 maybe. I think it's that drastic. Um, to make all the moves they did in the offseason in terms of like, with the front office slash, the options with the manager and everything like that. Ooh, I think this is another heavily, ownership driven, move. And I'm not a fan of it. I'm really not. I am. If you're San Diego, I'm a huge fan of it because I think it's only, like I said, it's only going to benefit them in the long run as they are going to push. If they stay healthy, I mean, San Diego is going to be right there, right at the end, in terms of, playoff positioning, like they're going to be in. Other than that, like I said, I don't know. Not a fan of it for the Marlins, but
okay. So now the Marlins are on the clock again. You've already signaled that you're packing it in for the year as far as like the high end talent that you have on your roster, which is very little to begin with for the Marlins. But how long until we see Jazz Chisholm dealt? Because he's the only other name of note, unless you consider the injured pitchers or potentially Jake Berger, who they got from the White Sox last year. But obviously, the main name that's left on that team is Jazz Chisholm. How long until we see him get shipped out?
At this point, it could be any day. Like, and that's the thing, because this trade came out of nowhere, and that's what is.
It really did.
Yeah, I mean, literally on a Friday night in May, at the beginning of May, we're like, oh Jesus, we already got an all-star traded. At this point, like I said, it could be any day for Jazz to be dealt. I mean, if they're going to do it, you might as well just go all in and just say, all right, other 29 GMs, call me. Everyone.
If I'm the Marlins, I hurry up and do it before Jazz gets injured because that's also what Jazz.
Oh, that's inevitable. Yeah,
it's a skill. So I'm working those phones as hard as I can to find a suitor before you look up and Jazz has done what he usually does and find a way to miss 3 or 4 weeks at a time due to some ridiculous injury. Because as talented as Jazz is and as good as a player and all the potential that we've seen, he hasn't been able to put it together for a full season, and he hasn't even really come close. So while you know that the talent is there, I also know that he's a ticking time bomb, especially if you're the Marlins. So I'd be pressing to get him out of there faster than I did Arise, quite honestly.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, it's almost like, he reminds me a lot of Byron Buxton, and it's, but I mean, who are you going to rather have? I mean, you would rather have Buxton over Jazz anyway, but I just think, it's just that the super talented player who can't stay, healthy. That's, it sucks. But again, if you're the Marlins, man, I'm like you said, I'm moving pretty quick before next thing you know, like I said, he's on the 60-day IL and out for the year. So, but that's just how injuries, are, and especially with a player like that. Let's move on to another player who sadly has had injuries mount. Mike Trout, man, poor guy. Injuries are the name of the game this past week. We got some big names going down. Mike Trout with the torn meniscus had surgery, successful knee surgery to repair that. He is out indefinitely. That is the biggest, that was just a huge bit of news that happened last week that just, man, what a gut punch. This poor guy cannot catch a break. In a season where he is, looking like the Mike Trout of old. Dude just, he can't catch a break. And then now you've got Stephen Kwan, Wyatt Langford, and Trey Turner. I mean, those are, a couple of the big names. And also got Grayson Rodriguez with a shoulder injury. But it's like, I mean, it's just, it sucks, man. There's some big names that continue to go down. And Scott, man, like this sucks, man. It sucks seeing all these guys, super talented players, big names around the league continuously going down.
Yeah, especially the Trout one. I mean, listen, we all know and we all could assume that at some point he was probably going to get hurt this year. That's the unfortunate part of the recent Mike Trout years in his career. His body is starting to break down on him more frequently, and I told you the minute I heard the news that seemingly out of nowhere he had a torn meniscus, and he had said that he felt it mid game at one point. Thought it's just just general soreness or whatever. Turns out the meniscus was torn. The length of time that he was going to have to be gone, it varied from 3 weeks to basically 3 months. Weren't going to know. We still don't have any word, but it just sucks. As a baseball fan, as somebody who has enjoyed watching Mike Trout do his thing through his whole career, and especially the way he had started off this year, he was leading the league, tied with 10 home runs at the time of leaving. He was stealing more bases than he had stolen. And could that have led to this? Who knows? But torn meniscuses generally, it doesn't have to be anything, rigorous that you're doing. We saw where, Ronald Acuna had kind of tweaked his meniscus in spring training just from doing rundown drills. So, it doesn't have to be from anything crazy. It's just really unfortunate. And then the other ones that you mentioned this weekend, it seemed like hamstrings were blowing out left and right. Trey Turner comes on Friday, and he ends up doing significant damage to one of his hamstrings. He's out for at least the next 6 weeks. Stephen Kwan had started off the season really fast, was playing really well for the Guardians. He's now on the shelf indefinitely with an injury to his hamstring. And then Wyatt Langford, we talked about him on the show a couple of times. He had that amazing spring training. It looked like he was getting ready to step into a prominent role and take that baton and run, maybe even be the next Mike Trout with some of the comparisons out there. Slow start to his career, things that haven't gone the way anybody predicted, or I'm sure Wyatt Langford had hoped for. He was batting in the 230s, and he pulls up lame last night, and so he's now on the shelf for a little while. So it just kind of sucks. Injuries are part of the game. Nothing you can really do about them, and these are all injuries that come in baseball. And then we mentioned Grayson Rodriguez, just another in the long list of arm troubles that these guys are having from a pitching perspective, or guys that throw upwards of past 95 on a consistent basis, average over 95, and are having either elbow or shoulder injuries. And it's a continuing thing. It's kind of like the Trout injury, and that you're just sitting there expecting that there's going to be another pitching injury at any given moment. Every time my phone buzzes, I assume that it's some type of injury, the way things have gone the last couple of weeks across baseball.
That's we've, like you said, that's what we've seen around the league. It's just like, every time you see a name pop up with, so and so left with, soreness, or it's like, oh Jesus. It's like it's one of those years, unfortunately, where injuries are the name of the game. Injuries are what is, it's going to grab all the headlines, and that's just the way this season's going. It's just a matter of who is going to be able to dodge that injury bullet the most. And, unfortunately, like I said, we've seen some big names go down, and it does, man. It sucks because, as baseball fans, it's like we're being robbed of, of this great talent, week in and week out because of, just shitty injuries, man. It's tough. But again, it's one of those years. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. In terms of Mike Trout, like I was thinking about this as you were talking, Scott. Like dealing Mike Trout, what would? Obviously he's damaged goods, but it's almost like I want to see like the curse, of him being in with the Angels, like just lift that from, what I'm saying? Like just get a different like a change of scenery, I think would be just big for him. At least, what I'm saying? Like
I hear the Marlins are open this.
What's that?
I said I hear the Marlins are open for business.
Oh my God, they've got plenty of payroll, availability as well, man. I tell you what, God, it's just. But
Could you imagine the Marlins making the moves that they've made and then deciding to bring in an injured
Mike Trout?
That would be so Marlins.
Oh, that will speed up that rebuild. Jesus, that would be so Marlins. That's right on brand right there. That is
Matt
right
Barr
on
saying
brand.
that Angels fans deserve better, but also fuck LA. So I don't know. And then there's that. I mean, I don't have anything against the Angels or that franchise. I'm not a big fan of Artie Moreno, and
I'm not either. Yeah,
he's been a pretty terrible owner since he bought the team in the early 2000s. So no love lost for him. But I do wish that Mike Trout could be on that big stage and that his career hadn't gone the way. I think, when it first happened, you and I were sitting there talking about it through text, and it's the comparisons and the unfortunate parallels to Ken Griffey Jr. are there. Like, I mean, one of the greatest players of a generation, playing out west where generally nobody gets to see him, doesn't have many playoff appearances, almost no playoff success to speak of. And then by the time that Griffey got out of Seattle and makes it to Cincinnati, his body breaks down on him. In Mike Trout's case, his body's breaking down on him while he's in Anaheim. They're still just holding out hope that maybe somehow he can get shipped out of there somewhere to a contender to just appear in the playoffs again. Like, I make no mistake, like when Mike Trout's healthy, as infrequent as that may be, we saw a full month of how great Mike Trout, was reminded how great he can be when he's unbothered by injury. Still probably the best player in baseball. I know Ohtani has snatched that baton and ran with it, and Ronald Acuna has obviously over the last 2 years cemented himself up there. But the way that Trout has been able to work through these injuries and still put up the numbers he has when he's in there, it's like I spent the first month forgetting about the injuries. Like, that's how good Mike Trout is. Like, you don't even think about it when he's going at his best.
Yeah, he's must watch. When he's playing, like when he's healthy, he's must watch, plain and simple. And it's like, you were talking about Artie Moreno. I mean, it is baseball malpractice the way that organization has handled Mike Trout's career. And then you couple that with Ohtani over the last 5 years. I mean, how in God's name do these guys not make the postseason? How does that happen? I mean, like, seriously. I mean, you've got two of the greatest players that this game has ever seen, and Ohtani and Trout, and you can't make the postseason with them? Are you kidding me? Again, it is baseball malpractice how they have handled that. And that's where I look and I feel bad for Mike Trout. The guy, it's like, and he's too good of a guy. He's not going to go in there and be like, all right, I got to be out of here. Ship me out of here. He's not going to do that. He's a respectful dude. I mean, he's just a great guy. But, man, dude, I wish he had, I get a little red-assed, man, and say, you know what, something's got to change or ship me out. Like, make some noise like that. That would – I want that to happen because this guy deserves better. He deserves to be on a team that is going to put forth the effort to make the postseason, and with an organization that is going to help, with that. It sucks. And again, with the whole Griffey comparison, people don't realize. And I remember, talking with a lot of family members, that aren't as into sports as as we are. Back when Griffey was continuously hurt. They're like, oh, he's hurt. And I'm like, you have no idea the beating that dude took playing on the turf in the Kingdom for freaking years, man. Like, that's like playing on cement each and every freaking day. I mean, what do you expect? And then, but it's like, oh man, you talk about being robbed of a great story here in Cincinnati. It was the Griffey years. I mean, that just it sucked. It sucked because I tell my boys, I'm like, man, if you only knew how good King Griffey Jr. was, just to watch him. Oh my God, incredible! And it's when he was healthy here, he was unbelievable. And that's what it's like, man. When Mike Trout, like, to see him on a bigger stage, that's what baseball needs. That's what baseball deserves. And I just, with seeing him consistently go down each and every season, it's like, man, I just want him to get out of LA and lift the bad juju that's connected with him, man. That's just I want nothing more than that to happen.
Well, and we talked about Grayson Rodriguez, who plays for the Orioles, going down with the shoulder injury, but the Orioles getting some reinforcements on that pitching side. They've looked amazing to start the season, and now they get back John Means and Kyle Bradish at the same time. Bradish finishing top 5 in Cy Young voting last year, so that's a huge gain. And John Means was their unofficial ace just 2 years ago before they started bringing everybody up and everything started coalescing there in Baltimore. You got a first-hand look at the Orioles this weekend. How did you think John Means looked in his return there, buddy?
Actually, you did because you were there on the game on Friday night. So
I was there on Friday, but I did not see John Means. He pitched Saturday. So
yeah, we got clapped, Scott. That's what happened. That was the Orioles literally flexing their muscle and saying, "All right, you know what? Nice try, Reds. But this, not a chance." I mean, they're just the Orioles are the Orioles. I mean, again, we talk about all the talent that team. I mean, it's just like, good Lord, like we're going to dinner last night and they're reading off the the roster or the lineup, and I'm like, man, some of these names, I'm like, good Lord. I mean, it's constant. I mean, and it's just guys that just continuously are just going to beat you, it seems like. And then you add like John Means back to the rotation, Kyle Bradish to go along with Corbin Burns. I mean, if only Grayson Rodriguez was healthy. I mean, that's what was so nasty about the Orioles picking up Corbin Burns. Good Lord. I mean, this team is not messing around, and they are, they flexed their muscle, Scott. So I got a nice first-hand look at
7 innings coming off of the IL and basically having not really pitched in like a year and a half. He pitched a couple of starts last year, but you could tell he was still trying to come back from his injury. But 7 innings, 8 strikeouts in Cincinnati, which is not an easy place to pitch. He looked great. And then you throw in Kyle Bradish, who was out there pumping 97. And obviously he had the scare back in end of January, early February with forearm tightness. They shut him down. We weren't sure if we were even going to see Kyle Bradish at all this season, because we know that the forearm tightness usually leads to elbow impingement, which usually leads to Tommy John. So the fact that he's able to get out there now, we do know that he's still pitching with a torn UCL. He didn't have surgery. All they did was rest and rehab it. So at any given moment, honestly, he could be back down. But the fact that he was out there throwing 97 is pretty encouraging if you're Baltimore. And they just continue to roll. They look great. But it was nice to see 2 guys come back when we were watching bodies drop and hit the floor all around us. 2 guys that are going to weigh heavily into this postseason race and potentially the title run come back for Baltimore instead of having to hear about more guys going on the shelf. So speaking of guys that are coming back, Walker Buehler is coming back tonight for the Dodgers. Also, after his second Tommy John surgery, hasn't pitched in 2 years himself. He spent most of the second half of last year rehabbing. The Dodgers didn't end up bringing him up at the end of the season, even though they said that there was a chance. Depending on how his rehab went, it didn't go the way they thought. He come out this season, everybody assumed he'd be good to go in spring training. He needed more rehab, and tonight he's making his major league return. What can we expect though out of a Walker Buehler coming back from his second Tommy John? He looked all right at his rehab starts, but do you expect Walker Buehler to pick up where he left off? Are we going to see like a Kyle Bradish type thing, or do you think he's going to struggle in his return?
I don't know if he'll necessarily struggle. I mean, he might. Is he going to look like Alek Manoah? Probably not.
Let's hope not.
Yeah. Is he going to look like Kyle Bradish? Probably not. It's probably going to be somewhere in the middle. But I think with Walker Buehler, you know, the dude he's a gamer. The kid he's a gamer. Hell of a pitcher. It sucks, you know, the multiple TJs there that he's had. I mean, for the Dodgers, you know, for them, just if they're able to get, you know, a solid start. I mean, what are you going to classify as a solid start? I mean, I would say, you know, if he can go 4 or 5, you know, maybe, a couple earned runs, you know, stuff like that, I think would be a good solid start for him. Like you said, he wasn't impressive in his rehab starts. I don't take, you know, a lot with that. You know,
I mean, there's not too much you can glean. You know, Means looked okay, kind of pedestrian, and
well, shit, Alek Manoah goes up and he gets in a pitching battle with Paul Skeens and dominates, and he looks really freaking good, and he gets out there and gets his tits lit up. I mean, really.
Minor league outings don't necessarily tell you anything about how it's going to go on the big league level.
Exactly, but yeah.
I'm hoping, because I did, you know, before the Dodgers really took over as kind of the authoritative superpower that they are, Walker Buehler was at the beginning of that kind of like ascent. And I always enjoyed watching him pitch. He was really good when he came up. So I'm hoping, for the sake of baseball, again, maybe not for the sake of the Dodgers, that he's closer to the old Walker Buehler that we've seen before. You know, the Dodgers have made it through to this point. They look up. They're one of the best teams in baseball. Again, they've got the personnel that dictates. They've spent the money that dictates that they'll be in that conversation. But you know, they'd be the first to tell you that you can never have enough pitching. And getting a Walker Buehler, if he's 3/4 of what he used to be, would be a really big help to this team and where they're trying to go.
Exactly. And I mean, and I know if you took your hater hat off, you know, you want to see, you know, the great players do great things. I know you.
Well, and quite honestly, if I'm being selfish about it, I hope Walker Buehler goes out there and fucking dominates, as long as he's not pitching against the Braves, because I got him on my fantasy team. So.
Oh, so there you go. Okay.
I have a vested interest in what
you do. Yeah, you're definitely in on this
for
one.
At least the next couple of weeks.
Okay, fair enough. I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Understandable. Yeah, then I'm not gonna bash you on that one.
I appreciate that.
Hey, no problem. I do it all, but you know, for the Dodgers, though, like you said, that's what it comes down to, is you can never have enough pitching. You know, they still have Dustin May, who's on the verge of, you know, his return. Unless I missed him, I don't think he's returned, has he?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. I was like, I didn't think.
He's not due back until I think August at the earliest, or sometime after the All-Star break. So.
Oh man, I misread that. Okay. Well, that's on me then. I want to say I thought it was earlier than that, but then he's not close to returning, because I saw him in the dugout the other night and I was like, oh shit, yeah, I forgot. And then I was like, I could have sworn I saw.
Unless they move, let me look that up. But unless they move that timetable up, the last I saw about Dustin May was not to expect him back until after the All-Star.
You're probably right. Like I said, I probably just misread it, or thought I saw something else. But let's see, Jackson Merrill's up right now against Justin Steele here. Justin Steele was 67 pitches through 5.
Well, and that's another name who returned tonight. Justin Steele, his first start since his opening day start, where he tweaked his hammy. So good to have him back on the Cubs mound, facing another former Cub who also just came back himself in the form of who's he facing tonight? Oh, Yu Darvish.
Yeah.
The former Cub Yu Darvish. So 0-0 matchup out there. Both pitchers looking good, and their returns to their respective mounds. I guess
Well, he's coming out.
Justin Steele getting a good firsthand look at new Padre Luis Arise.
Yeah, Justin Steele coming out after 68 pitches. They just took him out 4 2/3.
Is that the night for him?
Yeah, that's the night. They're bringing in.
So building him up slowly, not wanting to rush things with Justin Steele. That's probably the right way to go after. But looking solid there in his first go around.
Well, shit, the way things have gone, I mean, you might as well. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah, I cannot find any news about Dustin May and his return, but
I was going to say, I was going to try and. This is awesome, awesome podcasting here.
Oh yeah, searching, trying to find. Well, instead of just getting that sitting here fumbling around trying to figure out when those guys come back, let's talk about the newest additions to the league. Starting with one Christian Scott in New York. My God, my man came up this weekend for the Mets and dominated against the Rays.
He did.
Now, the Rays have struggled on offense to start the season. So, it's not as impressive as it looks if you were to say, if he were to mow down the Dodgers or somebody along those lines. But you can't deny the fact that Christian Scott in his first ever major league appearance looked every bit the part.
Oh, 1,000%. From Coconut Creek, Florida, so not too far away. He had a bunch of family and friends in the area. I want to say he pitched at the University of Florida as well. I mean, he allowed 1 run, 5 hits, and 6 2/3.
And how many did he end up striking out?
He struck out 6 and walked 1. So I mean,
okay, and he went 6
and 2/3. Debuts go. That's pretty good. But let's be real. You said the Rays, offensively have struggled a little bit, but it's still big league hitters, and it's a team that is a notorious pain in the ass.
That's true.
So, and that's how I look at it. I mean, anything. The Rays could go, 0 for 162, and I'm like, they're still a pain in the ass to play because they're the Rays. That's just how, I just associate, that style of play with them. Like they're a nightmare. They really are. And, they've got some dudes on that team that are going to make your night rough when you're on the mound. But, for a kid who had a bunch of family and friends in the stands in his major league debut, good on him, man. That was awesome. I love seeing, these debuts from kids, and they continuously come out and look good and dominate. It's just, again, I've said it a couple times on this show before. Baseball's in great hands, man. It really is. We are so lucky with what we have coming up in this, in this great game of ours. From some of the studs that we have in the high school level through the college level to what we've got in the minor leagues and set to come up and debuting. And even to the guys that have already debuted. Like, holy cow, this game is in great hands.
Yeah, Matt Barr's a Mets fan. He says that he has tempered expectations and that, Scott looked good. He wants him to do it again. But
that's a Mets fan right there for you.
Right. And I don't see why he can't. I went back and watched the highlights because I was curious, just having seen the line on Saturday. And I mean, he looked as good as advertised. I had been kind of following what he was doing in the minors, knew that his debut was coming sooner rather than later. Actually might have come just a tad bit sooner than I expected because the Mets being in a position that they've played well enough, they didn't necessarily need to bring him up, but they decided the time was right, and I guess they couldn't have been more right. He had a home run problem in the minors. Like, that would be the only thing that, people are saying maybe he needs to work on and get right before he comes up to the majors full time. Did not give up a single home run against the Rays. And, again, last year, very strong offensive team, homering out of their minds the first couple of months. Remember, the Rays looked like they were going to run away with the league to start the year last year. This year, not quite the same on offense and have sputtered quite a bit. Went back to not hitting home runs as frequently as they had. But still, anytime you can hold a major league lineup without a home run in your debut start, on the road, Very impressive. Unfortunate that he plays for the Mets, because I'll have a front row seat to watching him do that against the Braves, I'm sure, more than a few times over the next couple of years. So Christian Scott looked good. But you mentioned we've got all sorts of minor leaguers that had made their debuts this week. Joey Loperfido was wrecking minor league pitching, hitting bombs at a pace that they could barely keep up with it. He got the call this week for Houston. Hasn't done much, been pretty quiet, but hitting is a lot different than it is to come up and make an impact when you talk about pitching. It's in the same vein. You had Jordan Beck come up for Colorado. Another, he went to Tennessee, another SEC guy. When we're talking about Walker Buehler and Vandy there, those SEC kids really know how to play ball. So he debuted there in Colorado again, kind of slow to get going there. Nothing of note, but again, these are names that you can look forward to being the future of the game, and having like Tyler Black in Milwaukee, another name that to know and to look for, made his debut this week. And then tonight, Kyle Manzardo, who's been being near Cleveland, it feels like I've heard a ton about Kyle Manzardo, and he too had been raking down in AAA, and the constant refrain in Cleveland was, bring this guy up. When are we going to bring up Kyle Manzardo? Then they got Manzardo last year from the Rays, and a deadline deal for Aaron Zavalli. So once a highly touted Rays farmhand became Cleveland, a very highly touted Cleveland farmhand, now he's in the majors, and it's fun to watch. I get really excited when kids come up to make their debut. Again, a part of that is because of fantasy, because it gives you new toys to play with in that sandbox. But I do just enjoy seeing the guys that you see down in the minors tearing it up, get their shot to come up and make a name for themselves on the big league stage, especially some of these guys, like I said, that have high pedigree in the minors, or have high, draft status, or whatever it may be, for whatever reason that they're put in that spot for me to even know their name. Because for you follow, college and lower levels much more. For me, it's not until these guys get drafted and start to really make a name for themselves at the pro level, outside of Skeens, of course, who I've known for a while. It's hard to, but yeah, I mean, it's just fun to watch these guys come up and do their thing.
Well, the crazy part is, like I said, I'm obviously, a big college baseball guy, but, you had mentioned, Jordan Beck being another SEC guy along with Walker Buehler. The crazy part is, you're looking at maybe the first 5 picks in this draft are all going to be SEC guys. At least 4 of them, I'm guessing. 4 out of the top 5 are going to be SEC guys. And that's just, it's crazy to think about. And these are guys are, they're ones that can easily be like a Wyatt Langford, who literally last year at this time, he was playing, right at the end of his college season and headed into the College World Series. Wyatt Langford, is, the kid was a freak. And again, he spent, very little time. It was a fart in the wind for him to be in the minor leagues. And here he is already up here with Texas. So, it's stuff like that. But then you see guys, what I love is, you're talking about, these, you hear the fans, everything like that. Obviously the fans are going to clamor for, so-and-so's got to, be brought up. Well, these teams are now bringing these guys up because of the incentive in terms of, hey, if your player wins Rookie of the Year, you get that compensation for it, draft pick wise. Like that means a lot now to these teams. And now these teams are more willing to bring guys up. So now, like I said, with this draft coming up, and this is a fun one to watch. And I encourage people, check out the college baseball season. This has been an unbelievable year already. And you're going to see some dudes that, get a chance. Watch the SEC tournament coming up. You got 3 weeks left in the regular season. You're going to see guys like Charlie Condon, who, with Georgia, third baseman. There's talk of him going here to Cincinnati at number 2. This dude mashes home runs. He flat out rakes. He's going to spend very little time in the minor leagues, I would imagine, with whoever drafts him, whether it's, Cleveland at number 1, the Reds or the A's, Rockies. You've got pitchers who are ready to make a quick, a quick jump as well. I mean, so it's just all around. I mean, these, like I said, these teams are, with the talent that we've seen right now in college baseball, the transition to pro ball is a lot easier now than what it has been in the past. So that's why you're seeing these guys develop quicker in terms of being ready, for the pro game. Man, I love it. I absolutely love it. Like you said, yeah, for you, like, you being a fantasy guy, yeah, it's like you said, it's new toys for your sandbox. Like that's awesome. For me, it's more talent I get to watch on a daily basis. Like that's what I love. So I go from, watching a midweek, whether it's, Ole Miss and like Stetson, to, seeing these guys, perform on the big stage a year or two later. Like count me in. It's awesome. And it's cool now seeing, with the NCAA tournament coming up here within the next, like I said, couple weeks. Selection Monday is on Memorial Day. I mean, man, and then it gets fired right back up. Then you got the regional. What's that?
I said it's coming fast. Like I just thinking about the draft is in just a little bit over a month.
Oh, dude, it's crazy. And I mean, and along that note, I want to hopefully, on a side note here, we do have some guests lined up for this show. It's just a matter of getting, we got at least one or two, some, quality guests, Scott, I've talked to you about. Hopefully, we'll be finding a time to get them on. But one of them, in terms of talking the draft as well, he's got some guys coming up, for this 2024 draft as well. So, hopefully we'll get stuff worked out with that. But I encourage you guys all to watch college baseball because, like I said, what you have coming up right now, oh man, I mean, again, these are guys that you're going to see tearing the cover off the ball in major league ballparks here in the next 3 years. It's awesome. And again, the season's flown by in college. It started off in February, and now here we are, May 6th. And man, we're almost, like I said, to conference tournaments in a couple weeks. Then we go regionals, and then super regionals, and then College World Series, and then boom, there we are. It's awesome. So again, I encourage everybody, please check out college baseball. Like I said, for all the young talent that's coming up in this league, man, it's exciting, man. It's so exciting to be a baseball fan.
And I agree because, when we were kids, it was very hard to follow any type of draft or, player acquisition, amateur acquisition for teams because that stuff wasn't really, televised. It wasn't really covered all that much. Guys would get, you maybe heard about the top 5 guys. And then after that, you kind of just lost track of these guys. Even those top 5 guys would sit in the minor leagues 2, 3, 4 years before you ever heard from them again. And now baseball is to a point where a Wyatt Langford or a Paul Skeens, they go from the College World Series, and we're debating on whether or not they should be up in September, just a few months after their season finishes. So I think that's good for baseball. It's good for baseball fans. I know it's helped me as a fan because keeping track of these guys is a lot easier a year or so after they come out of college than it is to try to keep track of them for 4 or 5 years. And that's due to that's part of that's the way that the game has changed, where it's like once they legislated out greenies and stuff like that, and the older guys weren't able to hang on and have their careers as long as they could, teams had to turn to bringing up these younger guys and, throwing them in the fire. And you had a couple franchises figure out early on in the process, like, hey, this actually works. These kids can play. We don't have to keep them down there. We don't have to go the progression of rookie ball to A ball to AA to AAA and then finally give them a taste of the majors. These guys you're hearing about them playing rookie ball for about 10 minutes. By the time the end of the regular season ends, the year they get drafted, they're in the fall leagues and the Mexican leagues and stuff. There's conversations about those guys either making it that year or the following year. And again, that's all good for baseball because, again, those names stay front of mind and their accolades are right there. If a Paul Skeens doesn't make the major leagues for 3 or 4 years, you kind of forget about a guy like that. Like, no matter how decorative a college career he had, by the time he gets, it's like, oh yeah, that's right, he was really good. He was our first round draft pick. Like, let's see what he can do. I mean, people have been clamoring for Skeens now, like I said, basically since the season ended last year, to where it's just become this fear of pitch. And I got the text today that he's going to make another weekend start this weekend. And I first thought, I was like, well, there's going to be a lot of bummed out people knowing that you got to wait at least another week just to see him get to the majors.
Oh yeah. And he's, for baseball fans watching, Paul Skeens and what he did last year in probably the greatest college baseball season ever, for a pitcher. The dude was flat out dominant. I mean, there were times, he's chucking 120 pitches, and I said it, I want to say it was might have been last episode. Get a chance to watch the College World Series semifinal, LSU Wake Forest. Rhett Lauder, who is now Reds fans obviously know, Rhett Lauder is, he's with Dayton right now against Paul Skeens. One of the greatest college World Series baseball games you're ever going to watch. In a flat out pitcher's duel, that was unbelievable. Rhett Lauder is going to be a guy that, my God, we're going to see him hopefully here within the next year or two in Cincinnati. It's just, but the Reds are handling Lauder different than the way the Pirates are handling Skeens. I was listening to MLB Network Radio today, and they were talking about Skeens, about how he has not been stretched out. And it's Mike Farron had a pretty good point on it, kind of ripping the Pirates the way they've handled Skeens in terms of stretching him out. I mean, because, again, his numbers have, dropped after, I want to say he pitched for the first time on 4 days rest, I think is what it was. So his numbers, dropped pretty drastically on that. It's all in terms of building him up, man. Like, you build this guy up, you're in for one hell of a ride. Because I've watched him pitch countless times. Dating back to his days at the Air Force Academy. Dude was a stud, two-way player there. He was a catcher with Air Force all the way through. Him transferring out to LSU and dominating there. Again, it's in the way these guys have developed. I think is a lot of it too is they're just better than the way we were growing up. I mean, I look at it's like I keep telling like friends and everything like that who are in the game right now, and even like a couple neighbors and stuff like that who play high school ball, and I'm like, God, I would freaking kill to grow up right now playing the game. Because of what you have available at your fingertips. Oh my God, I can only imagine, like what my baseball career would look like, with everything, like I said, everything that's available to you, whether, all the, the data tracking, all that stuff. It's, oh man, take advantage of it. And I think that's what a lot of these players are doing. And they're developing so much quicker, which is in turn helping them from their time from college to pro ball. And again, these teams are not afraid to call these players up, which is what, that's what it's all about. Why hold them back when, Evan Carter, for example, look at what the Rangers did last year. Shit, we're going to call up Evan Carter and look what he does. He helps them win a World Series. Like it's stuff like that. These teams, they're finally getting to the points where they're not afraid to call kids up, and it's paying off immensely. Okay, Jackson Holiday, yeah, he struggled mightily. Send him back down. Let him in. He got a taste of the big leagues. He knows what it's like now. So for him, it's just a matter of battling to get back, which he's going to do. And he'll be right back in it again. And you're going to see him tearing up. It's just how it is. But again, it's, there's teams right now, and I applaud them because of the incentive, like I said, is now there to call these kids up and go for it. And that's what we're seeing. And again, it's only benefiting the game.
Well, before we get too much further into the show, as we slowly start to wrap things up, let's go on ahead and talk about the last couple of weeks that this has missed. I guess I got to start with the fact that my Braves are on a struggle, man. Went out to the West Coast, won one game out of 6 between Seattle and the Dodgers. Unfortunately, Dodgers look good. I gotta give it up to the Dodgers. They've played really well. Everything's clicking for them. We talk about guys getting called up. They've got a kid named Andy Pages who is taking over for them in the outfield right now. Reminds me of one Yasiel Puig, who when he came up with the Dodgers just kind of came up and just was raking. It was in the middle of seemingly everything there for a little while. Andy Pages was a wreck this weekend, just destroyed the Braves, has looked really well in his short time in the majors so far. The Twins are just coming off of a 12-game winning streak, kind of quiet. I knew that the Twins had been playing well, but we talked about it on our previous thing. The American League Central is the one, at least for myself, that I pay attention to the least. As far as the day in, day out workings of what's going on, it's very easy to lose sight of what's happening with those teams. So look up, Twins had won 12 in a row. That streak was snapped yesterday, but they've looked good. And then the Orioles, man. The Orioles have just looked amazing from the start of the season. I don't think there's been a stretch of 2 or 3 games where I've wondered, what's going on with them. They continue to come out and pitch and hit really well. I mean, that lineup is just it's so disgusting that they've got dudes down in the minors that would be starting for teams in the majors. Like, that's how stacked the Orioles are right now.
Dude, it's ridiculous. And the crazy part, and it just makes me sick, is as good as they've been. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They've won 4 straight. They're only a game up on the Yankees. Like, God dang it, man.
I mean, the Yankees have played well again, kind of quietly to a certain degree by their standards.
But in all seriousness, though, there's a lot of teams that have played well under the radar.
Don't look now, but the A's are 17 and 18. The A's, we've given all the shit and just railed on for the fact that their ownership is terrible. They're going to be playing in Sacramento this time next year. I mean, just a joke of a franchise, but hell, nobody tell the players in that clubhouse because they're 1 game under 500. And I think that may be the most shocking thing to this point in the season, especially considering the way that they started the season.
And they're 2.5 games back. Yeah. I mean, you talk about, and I think overall, I mean, this year seems like it's really, I think it's being overshadowed by, I want to say maybe a lot of the injury stuff. I think that's caused, a lot to go unnoticed. And I think a lot of, teams' performances is that way. Like you said, the Twins on a 12-game winning streak, like, my God, like you mentioned that and I was like, oh crap. And I went back and looked and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Because to me, like you said, you don't watch the AL Central. I don't either. The only team I care about is the Royals. They're the only team I could care less, or every other team I could care less about with the Royals. I do like Kansas City. They're fun to watch. Okay. But other than that, I don't care. So, and then I'm like, man, I sit back and look at the Twins. I'm like, dang, they go on, this run. They're 2.5 games back. In Cleveland, again, Cleveland's 22-12. We talked about them being the best team in baseball a couple shows back. And I mean, they're contenders. I mean, they've they're 5-5 in their last 10, but yeah, they're 2.5 games up. I mean, they're 22-12 and 5-5 in their last 10, and they're still 22-12. Like, again, under the radar, they're not getting that much notoriety for it. And it's like you said, the Yankees being a game under Baltimore there, and again, that's relatively quiet. The Blue Jays getting their teeth kicked in. They're in last place in the division. I mean, they're on the struggle bus right now, and it's like you don't hear much about that. It's. I mean,
a team you do hear a lot about though is Philadelphia, and rightfully.
Oh, okay. I was going to say. Philadelphia and the Astros were the 2 teams I was going to say you hear.
Okay, well, yes, I was going to say the Astros because they've struggled, but more so the fact that the Philadelphia Phillies have played really well. And again, taking off the hater hat, I may not like it, But despite the fact that Trey Turner went down over the weekend, they won again today. I think they've won 6 of their last 8. They were the first team to 20 wins. And with the Phillies, it's the last couple of years, while they've had that success in the playoffs and been able to knock the Braves out when it came to the playoffs, the knock has been, can they start quickly? Because the last 2 years, they've started off really slow. You look up mid-May, beginning of June, they're kind of, teetering around 500. And then all of a sudden they kick things into high gear and kind of run away with things. But because they start so far behind, it feels like they're always playing catch up. Well, not this year. They're giving, while the Braves have played really good baseball too, and they've stayed neck and neck, it's been more of the, I think, race and the competition that everybody has kind of expected out of these two teams in the regular season, just versus seeing it in the postseason. So, hopefully the Braves can figure things out and the Phillies can maybe stumble if you're me. But, again, for the time being, good baseball is good baseball. And, that Philadelphia team, they're good. There's no denying that they've got all the talent in the world there they've earned what they've been doing. It's not a team like the A's where you look up and think, how the hell have they made it to 500 based on the personnel? Assuming that they can navigate through this Trey Turner injury, which I think they will just fine, I think they continue to be one of the best teams in baseball, along with the Orioles, Braves, Yankees. And I think that's pretty much your class at the moment. The Dodgers, we talked about.
Yeah. And Scott, I want to say this. I'm proud of you.
Oh, God, what did I do?
No, you took off the hater hat and you actually came at it with a professional baseball podcasting viewpoint, and I'm proud of you for that.
See, here's the thing: I can do that for anybody all day, any day. It's just whether or not I want to.
Well, that's the thing, is you usually don't.
I'm usually petty. I'm usually
petty as hell.
I'm very loyal to my Braves, and that's fine. But you know what? I gotta give props where props are due.
But I am proud of you for that. And it should be. I want it to be recognized.
Well,
I'm proud of you, and you deserve all the credit for that.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
It's not often that my efforts are commended. So
that one, you totally deserve it, and I'm proud of you. So
and as we look ahead, some of those same names that we've mentioned in the last few minutes this week, the series that I'm paying attention to, Astros and Yankees coming up, because again, as much as those two have battled in the ALCS over the last 5-6 years. That's always a good matchup, even despite the way the Astros are playing. Are the Astros going to, turn the corner and start to figure things out and play more like the Astros were accustomed to seeing? The Orioles playing the Diamondbacks this week.
Yes.
I think that's a great series. And you got the defending National League champs and the team that, looks like they're making a real strong run for that American League crown. And then the other series that I was actually interested in is the Dodgers and Padres, because I know that the Padres, we talked about them getting a rise, and I may not be thrilled about the whole team construction, but that's a team that can actually compete with the Dodgers. And while they might have ran their mouths ill-advised last year, they can hang with them. Obviously, the names aren't going to match up, and you still give the Dodgers the edge. But I like when these two teams play now, in their current states, because there is a little bit of chippiness there between the two. So I keep an eye on those two West Coast foes. Any series that you're keeping your eye on this week, Chris?
That Dodgers-Padres one, and as I say that, the Padres they're up 6-0 right now on the Cubs.
Wow, that took a turn because it was 0-0 for the longest time.
I looked over and let's see.
That Cubs bullpen fell apart.
Dude, bases loaded, and was it Campusano? I couldn't see who it was that just hit it. Roped a double into the corner, scoring all three.
Very nice.
I can't see who it was. Yeah, it might be Campusano on that one. But yeah, so it's 6-0, top 6, no outs. Jackson Merrill's up. So yeah, but that's the series that I'm intrigued by. And I know you laughed at me. I want to say it was the episode 2, I believe, when I said that the Dodgers Padres that, carrying the momentum, and you gave me a little bit of shit for it. But I think, splitting a series like that with all the hype, like I said, in the momentum.
Oh, I give you shit when you're talking about the opening, the
the opening 2-game series when I said, the momentum part. Remember that? Like,
yes,
that could carry. I mean, that carries into, a weekend series like this. I mean, you go into it as of right now, they're 5.5 games back of the Dodgers, and they know they can beat them. They've done it before. So it's like, to me, that right there is a huge, that's a huge piece of it there because, my God, if you now that let's see, that series is that in San Diego or LA? I can't remember.
I believe it's in San Diego.
Okay, that's what I thought. I couldn't remember. I didn't have it pulled up there, but but for the Padres, I mean, if it's at home, okay, there you go. You're at home, you got a home cooking, so go for it. Hell, even if you're on the road, you've beat them there before. But that I think is the most intriguing series out of all of them. Astros Yankees, like you had mentioned, is a it's a good one just because of the history of it. But I mean, let's be real, the way the two teams are going, it's all Yankees on that one. But yeah, to me, that Dodgers Padres one, there's a lot riding on it, especially with like I said, the Padres, they make moves to be that thorn in the side of the Dodgers, and they just the last couple of years that's how it's been, and I think that's what a message can be sent early on this year, by a good solid performance by the San Diego Padres this coming weekend. So that's really the series that I'm mostly intrigued by. Other than that, like Reds, yeah, I'm looking at them just to get out of the funk they're in. But other than that,
on a 4-game skid, is that what I saw? The Reds are 4 in a row.
Yeah, it was
because that was something I didn't realize until I looked up this morning at the
5.
At the streets 5, yeah.
Yeah, they're 2-8 in their last 10. I mean, they're
Yikes.
16-18. Yeah, they and I wanted to say this actually. We were talking about the Orioles and Means and Bradish. They came back at the perfect time and then facing the perfect opponent because the Reds' offense was just. I mean, they're struggling. So in terms of guys like that coming back into it, it was a perfect recipe for them to face this Reds team that has been just scoffing there. They couldn't get it going. And so it worked out perfect for them. So hopefully the Reds can get out of that. I mean, right now, like I said, 16-18, first time under 500 since June of last year. Man, it's rough. Yeah, they're 4.5 games back too of Milwaukee and Chicago. So.
Well, San Diego's helping out.
San Diego's definitely helping out.
Cubs.
Yeah, and they just scored another one, I think. Yeah, it's 7-0 now, I believe.
Goodness. Well, before we get out of here and wrap things up, I mean, let's end on a high note because while we were away, including this afternoon, we had the debut of 2 new City Connect jerseys. Let's start with the good in Tampa Bay. Oh, yes. My God, the Tampa Bay City Connect jerseys came out last week, and they are fire. Fire. For those of you listening, the picture up of the Tampa Bay Rays City Connects. If you haven't seen them by now, just charcoal gray with different outlines. They've got neon, color schemes with the lettering, numbers. Just beautiful City Connect uniforms. I honestly, when I first saw them, and it might have been knee jerk. Probably in review, I would say that they didn't reach it, but my first instinct was to say that they were the best City Connects on the list. Like and no worse than top 5. Like
they're hands down top 5.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they're not my favorites, but they're top 5 in my book. I absolutely love them.
Rex Million pointing out that the socks look good too. Yes. The socks with the 2-tone blue going on. And I think my favorite detail of the jerseys, because they've got details on the hats with the bridge forms, the ray on the hat. They got the homage to the skating culture down there in Tampa Bay.
The skateboarding ray.
Skateboarding ray is by far the best little detail that they have on this jersey. Just on the pants below the waist, on the right hip is a ray on a skateboard. Love it.
It's so awesome. I mean, you talk about, hitting a home run with the City Connects.
They really did.
They did. They really did. And they look sharp too. Like because they wore them
They
the other
debuted
night.
them on Friday night. Yeah.
Yes. And I was watching that game and I was like, oh man, like these. Oh, they look good. They look sharp. Well done to whoever designed those. They are incredible.
This may when you see jerseys and the designs that Nike can come up with that are that look this good, it makes you wonder why some of them end up looking so bad. And in the bad potentially case, Chris and I are kind of about this one. But today, Detroit debuted their Motor City. Their City Connects not nearly as great. They're two-tone black and blue. The pants, the way that they actually sit and look with the blue on them, they almost look like jeans.
I was just gonna say, look just like jeans, yeah.
Which I'm assuming is part of the charm with the Motor City blue collar Detroit. I'm sure that's what they were going for.
Exactly.
But it just says Motor City across the chest. The design on the jerseys, if you look closely, it looks like tire markings, which my brother pointed out looks like they got ran over. Probably the worst part about the jerseys themselves is the hats, and the hats have been something of a standout over the last couple between the Rays and the Mets with the bridge on the skyline there. This just has a hat that says Detroit.
I like the jerseys, don't like the hat. Like that's what it comes down to.
The hat's pretty horrible. The jerseys aren't awful, but just overall middle of the road at best on these City Connects. They're just not really doing much for me.
Yeah, I mean, what could have been? I think a different hat changes that whole look. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. It's like, oh, I like the jersey. I mean, I really do. But that hat just.
I don't think you can wear the hat by itself, honestly. Like out and about, it just looks awful. Like nobody's gonna know why you're wearing a hat that just says Detroit across the front.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do.
We're not the only ones. Matt Barr saying Tigers look like they got ran over, D+, and Mike Chemian saying that the jeans are awful, just abysmal uniforms. So, yeah, not the greatest. I don't put them in the lower.
They're not the worst by any means.
Yeah, I don't put them in the lower third, but definitely I just chuck them somewhere in the middle. Like I mentioned to you before the show started that they remind me of the Cubs, the Windy City, same type of thing where they just took the nickname of the city, slapped it on some two-tone coloring and went about their day. Like it's
but you look at, like, for example, the Reds, like all it says is Cincy across the front of it and think badass.
But I was gonna say it's like the design of the jersey and the black, like it just looks better. And plus the hat isn't just an eyesore too. Like, could you imagine the same Cincy jerseys, but it just just Cincinnati just across the front of the hat?
Like, what the hell? You can't do that.
It wouldn't look right. Like,
no, it wouldn't.
It doesn't fit.
This, to me, these just, you throw them in the middle of, and just bury them in mediocrity. It's kind of what it is. I mean, again, jersey, I don't mind. I really don't. I don't think it's a bad look, but tying it all together, it's just not it. It's not it. Definitely seems bad.
It is not the rug that ties the room together. I can promise.
You've got that right. That is very well
put. Rex also wants to know what Eminem said about it, which I don't know. I did see, though, when they debuted these, I saw a picture of Eminem in them.
And I missed all that. I didn't see.
There's promotional photos out there of Eminem rocking the jersey. Okay. I mean, I suppose that he's super Detroit, so I doubt that he has anything negative to say about them, but he probably also gets them for free if he so wishes. So it factors into his decision there too. Like, if you're paying for that Detroit City Connect, you better really be in love with it.
Oh yeah, you better absolutely love it. To dump hard-earned money on that, that's a no for me.
And I can't get over the hat. The hat's so bad.
It's so bad. Brutal. Oh, that's a huge oof.
Alrighty, man. Well, I think that's all that I've got for this week. Do you have anything else that you want to throw out there? I mean, I miss this, man. 2 weeks is too long, but I say that immediately thinking about how, we're going to have probably another 2 weeks off again. So
yeah, probably. It's all good though. We'll make it work. Yeah, we'll make it work.
We do what we can here.
You guys, that's what it comes down to. You talk ball, and you can't beat it.
This gives us time. How many more players are going to make their debut in the next couple of weeks while we're away? Maybe there'll be another Christian Scott we have to talk about. More Christian Scott, less Mark Leiter. How about that?
Fair enough. Let's do it. I like it.
Let's get the hell out of here. All righty, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Backwards K Baseball Show. You can find us wherever you find all of your podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it. We're there, YouTube, and of course on the Impact Sports Cincinnati Network. This has been another episode of Backwards K Baseball on the Craft Brewed Sports Podcasting Network. For Chris, I am Scott. We appreciate you joining us. We will catch you again in a couple of weeks? ? I don't know. Our damn kids need to be coached for baseball. We'll be back soon enough. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining us.